Coming up on this week's edition of Trailblazer Weekly, football and volleyball keep it rolling with big wins over the weekend. We'll break it all down. We also welcome volleyball right side hitter Megan Trainer to the show.
Plus, we'll chat with football running back CJ Luongo after a recent practice at Trailblazer Stadium and preview this weekend's home events.
We've got it all on today's show. Trailblazer Weekly starts now. We are live inside the CEC TV studios on the Community Education Channel, Radio Dixie 91.3 FM, and the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page with another edition of Trailblazer Weekly. I'm Carrick Sagmiller, and joining me as always is veteran football color commentator Drayson Ball.
Carrick, it was great to join you on Saturday. As welcome me into the booth for the color commentary to do the home football game. It was really a great opportunity. I had a blast, and we witnessed a great game. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to continue to do that for the rest of the season.
I will say I was excited to have you in the booth. As I understand, you've called lots of games before. We've called some baseball games together and some other things. I was excited to have you in the booth, though. As I understand, is your first experience in the booth for football. But I think it gives us a great advantage because we work on this show together and we'll be doing the football games together throughout the rest of the year. You were supposed to be on the call a couple of weeks ago. We had to go watch that Braves game. But after one game, I'm okay with using that title to introduce you, a veteran football color commentator.
Well, thanks so much, Carrick. I mean, I thought I did pretty well. I thought for my first time it was okay, and I hope I can continue to improve. And like you mentioned, wasn't able to get to the first game, which was kind of unfortunate, but hopefully we can continue to get better. And like you said, we developed a good chemistry on this show, and we can continue to develop that going forward in the booth up there in the football stadium. So.
Well, I will say you nailed it. You knocked it out of the park, or should I say the football stadium. You did great. So excited to do those games going forward. Excited for this show. That's enough chit-chat. Let's jump right into our weekend recap to start off the show, and we start with volleyball. The Trailblazers opened their RMAC home schedule over the weekend with home games against Western State Colorado and Colorado Mesa. It was back to the SAC inside the Student Activity Center. 2-0 record on the weekend. Volleyball team improving with those two wins to 9-2 overall, 4-0 in the RMAC. Drayson, an incredible weekend for Dixie State volleyball. We keep thinking maybe we've seen the best of this volleyball team, and then they prove us wrong and say, no, we're that much better than they were. Impressive win against Western State Colorado Friday night. Won the first two sets pretty handily. Coach Felder kind of toyed with her lineup just a little bit in set 3. Almost got the job done in that set. Then all the starters went back in set 4, and it was total domination, a 25-8 win in set 4 to win on Friday night. And then into the big game on Saturday with Colorado Mesa. This team is already defeated. This Dixie State team has already defeated a couple of different top 25 teams, had a close loss to an Arkansas Fort Smith team that was receiving national votes at the time. Their only other loss came against Biola, a team that's right there near the top 25 as well. So this Dixie State volleyball team proved once again in the win over Colorado Mesa that they can play with the best of the best.
Carrick, they're on a roll. They're off to a tremendous start to begin the season. They're 4-0 in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. They've gotten off to a great start in their first season in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. They've won 9 out of their last 10 games to begin the season. They are on a roll right now. They're playing very, very well. It's led by their defense, which has been tremendous, Carrick, as you know, but also their offense has been really, really spectacular as well. I mean, you can't really point to many faults in this team up to this point in the season. They got that big win over Colorado Mesa University, who came in with a very good record. They were up near the top of the leaderboard as far as the standings in the RMAC goes. They handled them in 4 sets. I really, really like what I've been seeing from the volleyball team all throughout the season, especially in the last the last 4 games, especially to begin the RMAC play. And I really liked what I've seen offensively and defensively as well.
What was interesting, Saturday just was a little bit different than Friday in the fact that Dixie State jumped right out and they dominated that match right from the start. Dixie State got a little bit of a taste of their own medicine Saturday afternoon as they come in Colorado Mesa. That team was amped. They had just defeated Westminster in 3 quick sets the night before. In fact, I think 2 of those sets, Westminster only reached single digits in points. And they knew they had to win that game and then get on a bus and drive down here to St. George. They were amped. They were excited to be here, and it showed. And kind of, I don't want to say dominated that first set, but definitely owned that first set. And Dixie State was kind of back on its heels a little bit. I was impressed with their resiliency, with their ability to bounce back whatever Coach Felder said between set 1 and set 2, it worked because they rattled off 3 straight victories. Like I said, defense leading to offense has been kind of the theme with this Dixie State team. Tons of blocks for them. In fact, Lauren Gamble leads the nation right now in blocks per set with about almost 2 blocks per set on average. This Dixie State team, or Gamble, leading that Dixie State team with 70 blocks on the season. That all leads into great offense, and that has been led by junior right side hitter Megan Trainer. And we'll have her on the show here in just a little bit. But those 2 players split weekly awards. Megan Trainer named RMAC Player of the Week, Lauren Gamble for the 2nd time this season, RMAC Defender of the Week. So as a team, individually, this volleyball team has got it going when they need to have it going.
You said it, Carrick. I mean, you mentioned the awards. That's what really stands out to me is they took home 2 weekly awards, Defender of the Week, which is important, and also Player of the Week in Megan Trainer, who we'll have on the show. And I'm really excited for this team because they are proving that they are not only great defensively with like Lauren Gamble, who's leading the nation, like you said, in blocks per set, but they can also get the job done offensively with Megan Trainer leading that helm as well. But Carrick, now on to the gridiron. The football team hosted New Mexico Highlands on Saturday with a chance for its 2nd consecutive win, and the Trailblazers did just that. They made good on that chance, Carrick, with a really good come-from-behind victory, a 28-23 final score at Trailblazer Stadium. A really good, a really gritty win for the Trailblazers, if you ask me. I think they played really well. There's a lot of good, positive things that you can look to with this 28-23 win. Like I mentioned, it was a come-from-behind victory. They were down 2 scores going into halftime. They came out and pitched a shutout in the second half, didn't allow a single point for the Cowboys in that 28-23 victory, Carrick. A lot of good things to talk about. Where should we start, in your opinion, with this?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the word gritty, and you took that word right off the tip of my tongue. That was going to be one of the first words out of my mouth. It was a gritty win, and we're seeing that that's one of the kind of the backbone of this Dixie State team this year that has been resilient, bounced back from a tough loss week 1. They won last week in big fashion over Fort Lewis, and then you get this 28-23 comeback win. And as you said, they're down at the half, 22-15 or 23-15, excuse me. They had allowed on the ground 152 yards on the ground. Over 100 of those was Dion Alston, the New Mexico Highlands running back. He was running anywhere and everywhere he wanted. They used a delayed handoff. They used kind of some other movement around the backfield to try and distract the Dixie State defense, and it worked. They ran wherever and whenever they wanted to. 152 yards for the Cowboys in the first half. They go into the halftime break, and Coach McClure and his defensive staff and the offensive staff as well got their heads together. They came out with a great game plan, made adjustments to the good game plan they had going into the game. They allowed just 21 yards rushing in the second half, which forced New Mexico Highlands to go to the air, and they were able to complete some longer passes, but the Dixie State defense was up to the task, and as you said, pitched the shutout in the second half to get the 28-23 victory. So those major halftime adjustments was really the theme for me, and that's where I wanted to start, was defense and then capitalizing on turnovers as well. We talked about, you and I, we were on the call of that game, we talked about the need to have a turnover go Dixie State's way. Now this turnover that they got first, right off the bat in the third quarter, opening kickoff, the Cowboy returner just has it just pop out of his hands. Dixie State, Ryan Wilson, defensive back, jumped on it. Dixie State had the ball. They scored 2 plays later. So it wasn't necessarily a forced fumble, but Dixie State made sure that they capitalized on it. They got the fumble. C.J. Luongo, 8-yard carry. C.J. Luongo, 22-yard carry. And right after that, they were back in business. So defense and capitalizing on New Mexico Highlands miscues, for me, is what turned that game around.
And Carrick, like you mentioned, we said on the broadcast that they needed to control the trenches. They needed to win the battle up front with their offensive line. They did that in the second half. Also with their defensive line, however, that was maybe one of the key points of the second half into slowing down a great running back in Dion Alston. Like you mentioned, they gave up very few rushing yards in the second half, the Dixie State defense did. And that's because they had their linebackers, their secondary, like Mike Jones, Shiloh Pritchard, Trayvon Watson, those types of secondary or linebacker defenders. They really crashed the line and recognized those run plays. They did a very great job on that and made tackles at or near the line of scrimmage, Carrick, and they did not allow Alston to get off the way that he did in the second half, or the first half, excuse me.
New Mexico Highlands was leading the RMAC in turnover margin at +6 coming into the game. Dixie State was a +2 in the turnover margin against the Cowboys in that game, getting 2 turnovers from them, and for the second game in a row, not turning the ball over. So that was huge as well. C.J. Luongo had a phenomenal game. We knew we were waiting for that breakout game. 27 carries, 168 yards, and a touchdown. We'll have him on the show, talk more about that here in just a few minutes. Wanted to throw out Easton Smith's line as well. 13 of 25. 160 yards passing and a touchdown. He played a phenomenal game as well. He can get the job done with his legs when he needs to be able to move around and create space as well. One of his favorite targets was DeJuan Dantzler, 4 catches for 83 yards. One of those catches, which I'm sure you've heard of, you've seen it, the number 4 top play on the Division II football plays of the week on NCAA.com, and for you TV viewers and internet viewers, you're getting to see that right now. For you radio listeners, describe it. It was 4th and 6. Dixie State had already converted once on 4th down on the drive. Easton Smith drops back, places a perfect pass right into the diving, outstretched hands of DeJuan Dantzler, makes the catch inside the 5. Right at the 1 is where they mark him down. Lawrence Starks scored the eventual game-winning touchdown on the next play, and that was number 4 on the NCAA.com D2 football plays of the week. So fun week for Dixie State football. They got the job done. It's on to a tough game this weekend, which we'll talk about later in the show, against South Dakota Mines, a team that for one reason or the other has had Dixie State's number the last few years. They hold a 3-1 lead in the overall series between the two teams. Dixie State hoping to turn that around this year. Let's briefly touch on men's and women's soccer before we go to the break. They were on the road as well. Men's soccer headed back up to Salt Lake City. They were there, and we talked to Coach Broadhead about that non-conference trip. They went back up to play Westminster and then on to Denver to play MSU Denver. Quickly, men's soccer tying the first game 1-1 at Westminster and then falling 4-1 at MSU Denver on Sunday. That tie on Friday, Drayson, was the first tie for Dixie State in 43 matches. You had to go back to October 24th, 2015 in a 1-1 tie at Concordia Irvine to find Dixie State's last tie. Weren't able to get the win there. They had the lead, gave it up late, and then tied the game at Metro State Denver on Sunday, but then gave up 3 goals after tying the game at 1-1. And not for lack of trying, Dixie State are getting the shots off. They had 6 shots on goal on Friday at Westminster, 4 shots on goal at MSU Denver on Sunday, but they're just not finding the back of the net. Only 1 goal on the trip. That was in the run of play. That was Daniel Brubaker at MSU Denver. The goal against Westminster was a penalty kick, so they got to find ways to, and it's just kind of like basketball. Every once in a while, you're putting the shots up, keep shooting, you'll eventually find the net.
Yeah, that's what's going to have to happen, Carrick, in order for them to improve. They've been struggling a little bit to begin the season, but let's not push the panic button yet. We've seen them rebound from tough stretches like this, and I feel like they'll be just fine as well going forward. Going on to the women's soccer match, Carrick, they went up to Westminster, suffered a tough 1-0 loss. That goal was conceded in the first 5 minutes of that match, so kind of tough. And Carrick, sound the alarm, because the women's soccer team has finally allowed a goal this season. Sound the alarm. It's time to push the panic button for the women's soccer. But seriously, Garrett, all kidding aside, they have been tremendous so far this season, especially defensively. Like I said, the only goal they've allowed this season so far to begin their first 5-6 matches as well. And again, they can see that goal in the first 5 minutes, maybe one of those plays where you don't come out as sharp as you normally would have. The women's soccer team had 4 different shots on goal. They just couldn't find the back of the net in that game. Those types of matches happen, but they have not. Don't forget, Carrick, they've not played a home game yet. They played all of these games on the road. They've gotten out to a good start. Their only loss of the season up to this point against an in-state rival, a 1-0 kind of chippy kind of loss there as well with 21 combined fouls. So let's not push the panic button just yet.
But you said to push the panic button, I thought.
Well,
oh, you're being facetious. I see. Men's and women's soccer, they'll bounce back. They'll be just fine. Women's soccer on the road again this weekend, and to the week after they get to come back and play at Trailblazer Stadium. Men's soccer will be at home. We'll tell you who their opponent is later. One more thing quickly before the break. Cross country and women's golf open up their 2018 fall schedules. I want to let you know the results there. Cross country headed up to Logan, Utah for the BYU Autumn Classic. And I know you're probably thinking BYU and Logan don't really go hand in hand. poor air quality with some of the fires they've got going on. Those two big fires that have almost merged together into one up in the Provo area, so they moved the race from Provo to Logan. Both men's and women's cross country finish in 5th. Top finisher for the men, Kyle Warwick. Top finisher for the women, Billy Hatch. Women's golf, Drayson goes to Grand Junction for the RMAC preview. They tie for 2nd. That's a great result for them. They tie for 2nd. Top finishers, Caitlin Diebel in 5th, Katie Ford in 8th. So men's, women's cross country, women's golf, got it going. Their seasons are rolling. Men's golf will also open up their season later this weekend. We got to jump to our first break. When we come back, we will be joined by volleyball junior right side hitter Megan Trainer. Much more coming up on Trailblazer Weekly. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this timeout. Hey Dixie State fans, this is Carrick Sagmiller.
And Drayson Ball.
We're here to tell you about Trailblazer Weekly, our new show airing every Wednesday at 3 p.m. beginning on August 29th on CEC TV, the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page, and on Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
On Trailblazer Weekly, we'll bring you in-depth interviews with Dixie State coaches, administrators, and student athletes. We'll also keep you up to date with all the latest Trailblazer athletics news and game analysis.
Don't miss a second of the action. If it's anything Dixie State Athletics, it's on Trailblazer Weekly every Wednesday at 3 p.m. beginning on August 29th on CEC TV, the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page, and on Radio Dixie 91.3 FM. Hey Dixie State fans, this is Carrick Sagmiller.
And Drayson Ball.
We're here to tell you about Trailblazer Weekly, our new show airing every Wednesday at 3 p.m. beginning on August 29th on CEC.
Yeah. There we are. Hi, I'm Eric Young.
And I'm Jennifer Kohler.
And this is, we're coming to you right before our show that we go live with Talking Point Live. And we just wanted to tell you to make sure you join us Wednesdays at 9:30, live coming to you from the studios of the CEC here on the campus of Dixie State University.
Yeah, and you can catch the rebroadcast at 9:30 when we're not live, and 12:30 and 4:30. Daily, weekly.
Daily, this is like way too much,
Yeah.
I think. But just in case you got something better to do,
Yeah.
there's all those times you can catch it as well. Also, you can catch us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/talkingpointlive and on the CEC YouTube channel. All right, see you there.
We're basically very catchable.
Well, you are.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who wants to care of you.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM.
The fall season is in full swing, and no matter how hard you try, you'll probably miss a Dixie State game or two along the way. But no worries. You can keep up with all the action with pictures, stats, and game recaps at DixieStateAthletics.com. You can also follow along with updates on Twitter with our social media account at Dixie Athletics on Twitter. While you're at it, don't forget you can also follow this show on Twitter as well with at DSU Blazer Weekly. With that, the volleyball team is on a roll, as we mentioned earlier, and they're on a 9-2 overall record and with a 4-0 mark in RMAC play. The Trailblazers are winners of 9 of their last 10 games. And today, we're pleased to welcome to the show sophomore, not junior like we mentioned before the break, right side hitter Megan Trainer, who has been at the forefront of the team's success this year. Megan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys so much.
My apologies, first of all, for saying that you were a junior. I'm just glad I was wrong, because I think we get you for one more year.
Hey, it's all right. I'm glad to.
Correct myself.
Well, thanks so much again, Megan, for joining us here on the show. It's been a great season so far. Obviously, you guys are playing excellent right now. You've won 9 of your last 10 games. You're 4-0 in the new conference in the RMAC. We're happy we have you here. You're a transfer from Salt Lake Community College. This is your first year here at Dixie State. Just tell me a little bit what it's been like, kind of transferring, getting used to Dixie State, kind of why you transferred, and what you've enjoyed about this team so far this season.
Oh, I love it so much so far. The team is so fun. It's so easy to get along with everybody. I just felt super included like the moment I got here, and lots of energy, high energy on the court is what I love so much. So that's something new and different that I love.
I mentioned you got out to a running start in the RMAC. The RMAC and the new conference for the first season. You've played very well, won 4 of your first 4 games. What does it mean for you guys to get out to such a good start in the RMAC? Obviously, you've been playing well, but you beat teams like Colorado Mesa who have been playing well so far. What does it mean to kind of get out to a good running start in the RMAC this season?
Well, starting off well means that we're going to be even better by the end of the season, which is awesome. And it's good because we were the underdogs coming in. Nobody knew who we were, so it's awesome to come out strong and show them who Dixie is.
Is there kind of I don't know how to say it, it's probably not a word, a funness, a sense of just like they picked a 7th in the preseason poll and you can kind of sneak up on them. Now there's a big target on the back, but how fun was that to just kind of over the preseason and in these first 4 RMAC games they kind of prove them wrong and say, we're here and we're here to make some noise. We're not 7th. We're going to finish much higher than that.
Right. It's so awesome. The energy on the court, again, is just insane when we play, and it just makes it even more fun.
You just recently named RMAC Player of the Week, the first of many individual awards, I'm sure. First of all, congratulations on that. I know volleyball, like many others, is a team sport, but as all the individuals come together and do their own part, that's where the team comes into it. Just talk about what that means to you and just your first couple of months here in winning that award. And I'm sure your teammates have kind of let you hear it since then, like, oh, Player of the Week. Of course, you got Lauren Gamble, the Defender of the Week as well, so you can kind of share that together. But congratulations, and just what does that mean to you as just your first year here at Dixie and first couple of weeks of the season and Player of the Week already?
Well, thank you, first of all. It's super awesome. Just being on a new team and just connecting so well with the other setter is super important, and it's helped a lot to be able to do that. So without them, I couldn't have done it for sure. But yeah.
Drayson mentioned that you came from Salt Lake Community College, just helped dominate up there with the Bruins. I won't say then that I worked for a year up at CSI. We'll just keep that. I don't want that coming between us right now. No, but for real, what's been the biggest difference between junior college and NCAA Division II? What's maybe one of the biggest lessons you've had to learn? I don't know if maybe it's the speed of the game. What's been kind of the biggest difference so far between the two?
I think that probably commitment. Obviously, I was committed at Slick and worked really hard, but even D2 is much more different. I spend a lot more time in the gym. I'm up at 4:50 a.m. It's different. It's harder, but it's been worth it, and it's so much fun.
So you're saying you didn't practice at 5 a.m. when you
No,
were
we did not.
Okay. We like to give Robin a hard time about that practice schedule, but obviously it's working.
It is working
for your team. So.
Megan, you talked a little bit about, obviously, with the new conference, the coaching staff, Robin Felder has had to maybe change the way she approaches practices, things like that with the new conference. Are you seeing what you kind of thought you would in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference to where, obviously you're new, but has Coach Felder kind of said, hey, this is what we're going to expect and this is what we're actually getting, or has it been different from what you were expecting going into the new conference?
Honestly, it hasn't been that different. She just expects the best out of us, and in practice, we're expected to work our hardest, even if we were still in the Pac West or in the RMAC, we're expected to work our hardest in practice and in games, and she just expects the best from us. So
it's obviously and you guys are one of the best in the conference right now. It's a very defensive-oriented conference. That's something that was said early on in the season at Media Day and on this show on several occasions. Is that kind of the focus of your practices and your trainings? Is it kind of just you're a defensive-minded team, or is it more of an offensive-leaning team?
I think that we know that we're very good at defense, so we work harder at that, but we want to even them out. We're very good at defense, but we want to be able to be level with offense so that we're not just relying on defense or our blocks, so that we can get swings and put balls away. So we want to be both.
What do you like about St. George most so far? You're from Utah, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been down here plenty of times before. But what do you like? You live here now. What do you like most about the area so far?
Well, I'm excited for no snow. I'm not a fan of snow, but I love how close the community is. How so many people who know my parents or even my grandparents come to the games, and everybody's just so close knit, and it's just like a family.
Which do you prefer to play in, Burns Arena or the Student Activity Center?
Definitely the Burns.
But there's a and I don't know how you describe what the word is, but in the Student Activity Center, you're just kind of right on top of each other. You can pack 500 fans in there, and it's loud. But I will say that was pretty special to see volleyball inside the Burns Arena.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about team chemistry so far. It just seems like every time I'm at a practice, or obviously I'm not at many practices because like I said, it's 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But every game I see, whether it was at the Burns Arena tournament or the 2 games at the Student Activity Center over the weekend, just looks like you're all having fun. And obviously if you're not having fun, why are you playing the game, right? Seems like that team chemistry there. Talk about that a little bit and how this year's team has maybe been special or unique versus other teams that you've been a part of.
I think the key is definitely trust on the court. I trust the libero to pass the ball. I trust the setter to set the ball, and they trust me to put the ball away or get a block. We trust each other, and we know that we are good enough to do what we're capable of. So, and we just again have so much fun out there. We get so excited for each other. When Lauren gets a block, we all lose our minds, or when Sid gets a dig, it's just so fun.
Yeah, we had Lauren on the show, and she kind of mimicked the same sentiment. That you all get along, and you're all kind of kind of a family, like Carrick mentioned. I gotta ask you, who's the funny one on the team? Who's the one that maybe on a long road trip, that, if you're all kind of tired, who's the one that can lighten the mood a little bit?
I think Sid Brandon makes me laugh so hard every single day. Even at 4:50 in the morning, she's making me laugh all the time.
It's always good to have someone that can make you laugh, even on a long road trip or something like that, or at 5 in the morning at your practices. Megan, what are some of the biggest things that you've learned so far in the season and in the conference play? Maybe is there something that you didn't anticipate going into the season? What's something that you've learned maybe about your personal style or about the team this season?
I learned a lot with defense. Coming in, they're a large defense team, so I learned a lot about that. And again, like I said before, commitment. It was incredibly hard for me to start waking up at 4:50 a.m. That was so hard for me. So being more committed and being more into it, and just knowing that my team expects me to do my job and nothing less, then that was awesome.
Fort Lewis and Adams State this weekend. Then it's off for kind of a rare, I don't know if you'll stay on the road all 3 games, but the games are maybe close enough together that you could, but kind of a 3-game road trip after that. One of those is to Westminster. I'm sure you've got friends at Westminster. Other than some of these other conference rivals like Colorado Mesa, obviously, Colorado Mines, those are all going to be big games. But I'm sure some of you Northern Utah folk are excited to get back up and play at Westminster in front of friends and family. You excited for that game?
I'm super excited. The whole Slick team said that they're going to come watch, so it makes me want to play even better. But yeah, I'm really excited to see players that I know and play against them and see my family and stuff.
Megan, you're it's just been really great to see you guys play so well this season. I mean, we've mentioned, obviously we can go on and on about kind of as a broken record that you playing so well, but also if you look at your schedule and your box score, you're beating a lot of teams in 4 sets. You're not going to a lot of. I think you've only gone to 1 5th set, and that was the first match of the season, if I remember correctly. So how are you? What emphasis do you guys put on, or maybe if you don't put any emphasis, I mean, how are you able to just beat teams in 4 sets and really kind of focus to not get to a 5th and final set?
Our coaches put a lot of emphasis on us knowing how good we are. They say, we know and you guys know how good you are, so let's not go any less and don't play to anybody's level, just get it done quick and hard.
Well, Megan, we appreciate you coming by and spending a few minutes with us even after a long day of practice and school, and you're finally just getting to that point of the day where maybe you can go and relax and just veg out for a minute. But we appreciate you taking 10 minutes with us here on the show, and it's good to get to know you and the student athletes, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we created this revamped way we're doing the show this year. We want to get as many of you and your teammates and all the other sports we can on the show just to get to know you. So thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we'll be there this weekend and hopefully for a couple wins against Fort Lewis and Adams State.
For sure. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
We got to take our next break. When we come back, you'll see an interview that Drayson and I were able to go and tape with football running back C.J. Luongo. He wasn't able to make it on the show. Unfortunately, the football team practices at the same time our show goes. So we went out to the end of practice yesterday and had an interview out on location at Trailblazer Stadium with C.J. Luongo. We'll have that next, so don't you dare touch that dial. Once again, another big shout out to Megan Trainer and the Dixie State volleyball team for stopping by and joining us on the show today. One more break and then right back on Trailblazer Weekly.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this. I need a one dance. And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
Oh, lunchtime. I'm starving.
Yeah, me too. Hey, Carrick, have you heard about the most exciting new thing on campus this semester?
Oh, you must be talking about the new grandstand addition on the east side of Trailblazer Stadium.
No, man, that's actually not what I'm talking about.
Oh, you must be referring to the new Human Performance Center they're building on campus.
Well, that's a good guess, Carrick, but nope, wrong again.
Oh, I know. You mean that this is the first season for Dixie State as a full member in the RMAC?
All those things are really exciting, Carrick, but the most exciting new thing on campus is the new Trailblazer Weekly show every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on CEC TV, the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page, and on Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
You're right. That is more exciting. Trailblazer Weekly, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. beginning on August 29th on CEC TV, Dixie State Athletics YouTube page, and Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to our set here of Talking Point Live. We're just getting ready to shoot our show, but we thought we'd put out a little bit of a promotion so you know when this is going to be rebroadcast.
Right. You can find us at 9:30,
12:30.
4:30.
Sorry, did I step on you? I'm always stepping on you. Tune in and watch me step on Jen Moore. On Talking
Or
Point Live.
attempt to, anyway.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George 100.3 FM.
You think getting dumped by text is harsh? Try getting dumped by a tennis ball. My ex-owner drove me out to the woods, yelled fetch, and by the time I brought the ball back, he was gone. Yeah, I was pissed. But the folks at the shelter helped me let go of my anger. I learned coping skills, like taking it to the hole. Boom! Now I'm ready to fetch again. But how about I throw and you run and get it?
Trailblazer Weekly is presented by the Dixie State Campus Store, the official store for Trailblazer and Dixie State clothing, as well as cheap textbooks, discounted computers, and supplies for students. They're located on the second floor of the Gardner Center and are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the week, closed on Saturdays and Sundays. You can stop by there anytime, doesn't matter when, because they'll be loaded with great Trailblazer swag all the time. Big shout out to Aaron and his crew over at the DSU Campus Store for helping us outfit our set and everything you see here on Trailblazer Weekly. We had our first chance to get out on location this year. Football running back C.J. Luongo had a breakout performance on Saturday, rushing for 168 yards and a touchdown in the 28-23 win over New Mexico Highlands. We headed out to football practice yesterday to chat with C.J. about the win and a host of other things. We had a blast, and we think you'll enjoy our chat as well. So here you go, our interview with running back C.J. Luongo. on location at Trailblazer Weekly. We are with junior running back CJ Luongo of the football team. CJ, excited to have you on the show this week because of practice and school schedule. We couldn't get you in the studio, but hey, this is a good change of scenery. We get to come out and see kind of your stomping grounds out here and see where you do your work, both at practice and in the game. So CJ Luongo, junior running back, excited to have you on the show. And you're just coming off a big-time week against New Mexico Highlands, and we're kind of watching when CJ going to have that breakout game, and you had it on Saturday. 27 carries, 168 yards, and a touchdown. Let's just talk about that game first of all. What was going through your mind as you were getting ready for that game, knowing that we got to get the ground game established to do what we want to do offensively?
I think for us, coming as a team, coming off a win over Fort Lewis, and then coming off a loss the first game, I think we kind of came together as a team and decided, what our identity is going to be this year. And coming off a win like Fort Lewis and then coming into New Mexico knowing they're a better team, we came into the game kind of short. We felt kind of short first half, and then we came into halftime, and Coach Mack kind of reiterated what we always say about creating identity. So we came out second half, and defense started off with a big-time play with the fumble, the first kickoff of the game. And I think from then on, it was just like a snowball effect. Everything just kept rolling our way, so yeah. Of
course, you mentioned that fumble recovery of that kickoff, and it was you had the ball both touches after that, an 8-yard run and then 22 yards to the house. Take me through that play. You started right, the touchdown run that is. You started right, and then you saw the hole open up inside. Did that play call for you to go to the right, and then you just saw the hole and cut it back up, or was that designed? Take us through that play.
When we first designed that play, it was supposed to go right. It's called what Coach Rowland calls it, riding the wave. So we ride the wave, and then if you see a cutback, you see a cutback. But if you don't, you stay to the right. And in that play, in my mind, I was thinking just going to the right all the time. But I had a little feeling like to cut back, and then I went right first, and I saw it like at the last minute. So I mean, great job to our O-line though. Our left tackle B-Dub that worked vertical and got me to that spot to get that touchdown.
Would you rather go around the end untouched or be able to kind of juke somebody and cut back and then into the end zone? Or does it not matter as long as you get there?
I don't know. For me, I always like fun, so I probably like cutting. I don't like being untouched. I think it's kind of boring. So I think I'll prefer the second choice.
So, CJ, going back this last weekend and then the game against Fort Lewis, your offense hasn't turned the ball over once in either of those games. How much emphasis has Coach Mack and Coach Rowland put on taking care of the football? And then secondly, how is that winning the turnover battle, how has that helped you guys come out on top in both games?
Coach Mack and Coach Rowland has really been a good emphasis on not turning the ball over, but I think a lot of it was on Coach Rowland. For him creating that edge of us and then saying, we have to go out and we have to finish. I think that's a big part of Coach Rowland's offense this year is about finishing. So our first game, we really didn't finish. We kind of turned the ball over, and I think that kind of impacted us in a way to come together as a team and be like, okay, we gotta listen to what Coach Rowland is saying, for us to finish. So we came out second and third game, and we told ourselves to create an identity and to finish and to not turn the ball over so we can give our defense a chance and we can come out with a W.
So you're always seems like when you got the ball, it always seems like you're finishing runs, getting an extra yard or two maybe after initial contact, and always falling forward, things like that. Maybe without really any secrets, how is it that you're able to kind of get the extra yard after maybe initial contact or something like that, falling forward? How is it you're able to do that so consistently?
I think for me it's motivation. So when I come out there and I know that my O-line is putting their backs on the line for me to block, and I know my receivers are blocking for me, and I know the coaches are calling good call to run the ball. I think it's a lot of it is motivation and trying to get those extra yards so I can trying to get that touchdown. Because I know when we have long drives, our O-line just huffing and puffing. I think in their minds, I'm just like when we run the ball, I'm just like, okay, I got to get my offense off the field. I got to get the offense off the field. So that's what my process is.
This is year 3 for you here at Dixie State, CJ, and so you've been part of 3 different teams. What makes this year's team special? That's a question. A lot of people probably think I repeat it, but I like to ask that question to the student athletes, especially that have been here for a couple of years, because I know each team is different and each team has unique things about it. What makes this year's team special or unique versus the other 2 teams you've been a part of here?
I think what's special about this year's team is a lot of people are buying in. And no offense to the other 2 teams that I've been a part of, I think it was kind of a stepping stone. My freshman year here, we kind of took that step in becoming the first winning season here at Dixie State. And second year, we kind of took like a little step back. But I think this year, a lot of people are buying in. And we kind of brought a lot of players that also wanted to buy into this process. So I think that's a real big difference in this team this year.
Let's rewind a little bit. I mentioned it's your third team here, your third year here. Let's rewind back a few years. You're finishing your senior year at La Mirada, tearing it up down there in California. I'm sure Dixie State was already on the radar, but what was some of the influencing factors that made you want to, put ink to that paper and say, I'm coming to Dixie?
Coach Mack. I think that was a big part of my decision, and I knew coming into taking my visit here and seeing how Coach Mack, handles the coaches and hearing him talk about having, like a winning season. And coming off, a senior year, winning state at La Mirada, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be part of a winning program, and I wanted to be part of a team that felt like family. So that was a big part of my decision.
Did you play any quarterback growing up? Because it's been a couple of years now since we've seen that halfback pass, but I go back on this field behind us with different turf back at the time that halfback passed the game-winning touchdown against New Mexico Highlands 2016. That throw was pretty spot on.
Actually, funny story. I started off at running back my first year at Pop Warner, and then our quarterback got hurt. And we had no other quarterback to play, so I winded up playing quarterback the rest of the season. But I never threw the ball. We always did like run plays and all that stuff. So I guess just throwing the ball with my dad was just part of the quarterback kind of little emphasis right there.
Left-handed, growing up in California. Did you look up to Steve Young at all?
Yeah.
So, AJ, obviously big NFL fan. You mentioned that a little bit before we were taping, and so I got to ask you, who's your favorite running back, or who do you think is the best running back in the league right now?
For me, it's Mark Ingram. I don't know why. I like how Mark Ingram runs. Maybe it's because he came out of, I'm an Alabama fan, so, I like all running backs that come out of Alabama, but the most running back that I really, kind of put my game after is Mark Ingram, because I like how he doesn't take the hit all the time. He gives the hits, and, that's what I try to emphasize on my game.
So you're, as the Saints, your Super Bowl pick this year. Who do you got winning the whole thing this year?
I'm a 49ers fan, no doubt about that. But, I'm a Mark Ingram fan too, so.
It's AJ Luongo here on Trailblazer Weekly. AJ, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule after practice. Everyone else is gone. You're here still with us. We appreciate you hanging back with us. Good to get to know you. Let's just quickly talk about Saturday's game against South Dakota Mines. I think it's a game that everybody feels like, maybe some unfinished business. There's a couple of games the last few years that felt, everyone feels like maybe it could have, should have gone the other way. How's the team feeling? How's practice been this week as we look forward to South Dakota Mines?
I think coming into every week, we don't really take an opponent a different way. Like Coach Mack says, 1-0 this week. That's what he always emphasizes this week. So I think coming into every week, no matter who we play or what their ranking is in the RMAC, I think we try to take each team the same way and try to practice the same way.
AJ, we appreciate your time. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks so much, AJ.
Toss it back to the studio. Trailblazer Weekly continues right after this. There's nothing quite like tossing to yourself from the taped interview back into the studio, but hey, it works. Had a lot of fun with CJ out at Trailblazer Stadium yesterday, and it's good to talk. I mean, he's one of the good guys. All of our student athletes are great people, but CJ is truly one of the good guys. He's kind of a quiet guy that goes about, puts in his work, goes in, big performances on the field. And just really fun to talk to CJ and someone that we're glad that he's just a junior. We got him for one more year, and just don't look ahead too far, but someone that I think will probably end up atop the Dixie State career rushing list before he's done.
Yeah, he's had a great career, Carrick. We were talking about it just before we did that interview about how he's really just kind of been a really solid rock for Dixie State over the past 2.5 seasons, and he's just the kind of guy. It's never about him. It's always about his teammates. He mentioned a few times during that interview his offensive line, and obviously that's one of the most important things for a running back is how well you can run behind your offensive line. And he's always a guy that has boosted up his teammates, his offensive line, and just his overall teammates has been a really big emphasis for him. And he's just a stand-up guy. He's having a tremendous season already. He's over 200 yards rushing so far this season in just the 2 games that he's played. And you saw on the graphic earlier that he's averaging 100 yards per game in 5 different games. So he's just a really good guy and an amazing season so far. I expect big things from him going forward, and I'm so glad that we got to get to watch him for another season next year.
Well, it's fun to get out to the stadium too. I mean, it's always fun to have people on here on the set, but it was fun to get out on location to Trailblazer Stadium and just kind of a taste of some different things that we're going to be doing going forward. Last week we had the Tracking Trailblazers segment. This third segment of the show is going to be that segment where we get out and if we're able to get out and do some things outside of the studio, we've got some fun things planned with golf, and we're going to go to basketball when they get going, and back to football, and just to to volleyball. Maybe they practice too early. Maybe we can't get out there. I can't get out of bed that early, but just some fun things on tap for this third segment. So I don't know about you, but I had a blast just going out to the stadium, watching the end of practice, seeing how they're doing, and going forward, looking ahead to that South Dakota Mines game.
It was a lot of fun, Carrick, and I hope we get to do it again sometime. And like you mentioned, we got a lot of great, interesting, fun, just like unique things planned for this third segment. I think it's going to be a really great, kind of a fun, just kind of break it up segment. I'm really excited for what we have planned going forward.
Of course, we don't want to go spoiler alert and tell you everything that we're going to do. You're going to have to watch the show to find out. We'll have some stuff coming up on social media when those things get a little closer as well. We do need to take our final timeout of the show. When we come back, we will take a preview ahead at this weekend, specifically take a dive into the home games, football, volleyball, men's soccer, and let you know what to expect in those. Another big shout out to CJ Luongo for taking time out of his schedule yesterday after practice ended before he took off and had kind of time to himself for the evening. One more break and then back to put a bow on the show on Trailblazer Weekly. There's more after this.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this.
I need a one dance.
And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be earthquake next Thursday.
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day. I have no time for this. So.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
Fast-paced family life in need of a slowdown?
Hello, I'm Dr. Spruce. Did you know all those green shapes on maps are parks and forests? It's true. Visit discovertheforest.org and plan to visit a park or forest near you, instead of just wondering what it would have been like.
While the word forest might make you think of distant lands from far, far away, please note parks and forests are closer than you think, which means things like beautiful scenery, fresh air, and family time are also closer than you think.
What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this.
I need a one dance.
And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
The Dixie State Stretch Internet Portal and the RMAC Network is your home for all Trailblazer athletics live streaming. Don't miss a second of the action. You can watch DSU games home and away at portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State. That's portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State. Our time, Carrick, is winding down on this show, so let's jump right into it with our weekend recap, weekend preview. Men's golf heads to Washington State for its first fall tournament as women's soccer heads back on the road to Regis on Friday and then on Black Hills State on Sunday. Men's soccer is at home against Colorado Spring and Regis, while volleyball will host Fort Lewis and Adams State. Cross country heads to UNLV, and football will host South Dakota Mines.
It's a busy weekend.
It is a really busy weekend.
I'm glad you had to read that.
It was a mouthful, Carrick, and everyone is in action.
And not me, because that's a busy weekend, and that is the look at the weekend as a whole. Now let's break it down, as I teased before the break, to those home games. Look at those a little bit more in depth at home this weekend. Football, volleyball, men's soccer, also back at home. Poor women's soccer, they got to go back on the road again, and to South Dakota, to Black Hills State. So a long trip coming up for them. Let's start with football. A lot on the line for football this weekend. They're 2-1. They want to keep expanding that number of games over 500. They've got South Dakota Mines in this weekend, and it's a team that, for one reason or the other, I talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, has got Dixie State's number. They've played 4 times overall. The first time Dixie State was still the first 2 times Dixie State was a member of the GNAC. November 1st, 2014, South Dakota Mines made their first trip here to St. George. It's a game that went to overtime. And anyone as a former player was on that coaching staff at the time may want to plug your ears at the time. Dixie State lost that game on a missed extra point. Doinked that off one of the uprights. That's how the game ended. Scored a touchdown, missed the extra point. That's how the first game between these two teams ended, and you thought, this probably is going to be a crazy series. Dixie State then, when both schools were a member of the GNAC, Dixie State went to Rapid City on Halloween 3 years ago, 48-25 victory. That was the game that Blake Barney went for 291 yards on the ground. I'm pretty sure he's still there running circles around on that field from that game, because they rushed for over 500 yards as a team. Set records. The next year they came back, South Dakota Mines came back here, September 10th, 2016, 31-27 win for the Hard Rockers. That was a game that Dixie State really felt like slipped away. There were some penalties, some other things that extended South Dakota Mines' drives that the Trailblazers really feel like they let that game get away from them. And then last year, September 9th, 2017, in Rapid City, the Hard Rockers scored early. Dixie State was not able to score until a little bit later when they would score. The Hard Rockers go right back down and score a 35-14 win for South Dakota Mines in that game. So Drayson, a team that over the last 4 years, for one reason or the other, has seemed to have Dixie State's number. They hope to change that on Saturday.
Yeah, and Carrick, and I like their chances, especially with the way they've been playing in the last 2 games especially. We talked earlier in the show how they have been winning the turnover battle, and that, Carrick, as you mentioned, I've said on the show many times before, the turnover battle is one of the key things that I look at when I try to break down a box score of a football game. I love that they're not turning the ball over. They're taking care of the ball offensively, Carrick. If they can continue to do that, and they can have a good performance like they had with Sadie Luongo this last weekend, over 160 yards of rushing, I think they'll be able to have a really good chance. I feel like South Dakota Mines is a little bit kind of a blueprint as far as what you might see, what you saw last week from New Mexico Highlands. They have a really good offense, really high-powered offense, but you can get to their defense a little bit. Not quite as good as their offense. Their offense is very, very well run and powerful and potent. Not only that, Carrick, you got some history on the line. Don't forget, this could be the best start in the Division II era for the Trailblazers at 3-1. If they were able to win this game, they'd go to 3-1, which would be the best start in the Division II era, Carrick. There's lots to prove, and like you mentioned, South Dakota Mines has had their number over the past 4 seasons that they've played. I really expect that to be a big motivator for the Trailblazers going into this matchup. Don't forget, it's the last home game until October 13th, so it's the last chance for the Trailblazers for almost a month to kind of give the home fans something to chew on, knowing that they can go out on the road, maybe get a couple more wins, come back and be in a great position in the conference against San Diego Mines, South Dakota Mines, who can really be a tough opponent.
Yeah, good stuff. Last thing on football before we jump into volleyball. You mentioned going to South Dakota Mines. It all starts with the quarterback, Jake Sullivan, a mobile quarterback. They've got a good running back as well. They'll look to get that job done, because then it's out to South Dakota next week to Black Hills State. And then after that, you're going to Grand Valley State, one of the big boys in Division II football that has kind of set the blueprint from becoming a premier Division II school, and they're proud of it. And that's exactly what, if Dixie State as a Division II member, that's where Dixie State Athletics wants to be. So some fun times going forward for the Dixie State football team. But volleyball, going to have some fun this weekend as well in the Student Activity Center.
Yeah, they've got 2 more home games, Carrick, before heading for 3 straight out on the road. We're looking forward to those 2 games this weekend. It was an awesome weekend last weekend, beating Colorado Mesa. I just kind of hope that they can keep this momentum rolling. They've obviously been off, we've mentioned it a few times on the show, they're off to a great start. They're really making a name for themselves in the RMAC, and I really hope they can keep it rolling. As we've said time and time again, Carrick, defense leads to offense. That's really what has been key for this team so far this season. They have had the 2-time defending Pac West Defender of the Week in Lauren Gamble. RMAC Defender of the Week. And they now just recently been named, Megan Trainor was the Player of the Week in the RMAC as well. So I really can hope they can keep this rolling, keep the momentum going, and keep making a name for themselves in the conference.
You hit the nail on the head there. They're taking the RMAC by storm, at least at this point. They're 4-0 in RMAC play, and like we talked about with Megan Trainor earlier in the show, and I think Coach Felder and any of the girls on the team would agree, they flew in under the radar because, I mean, the coaches poll, preseason coaches poll in any sport, we can just be on it. I mean, it's based mostly on the year before. Dixie State wasn't in the RMAC last year. They were in the Pac West, as we've mentioned. So they didn't have any RMAC contests to go off of, but Dixie State also had a year in volleyball last year that was lower historically than what we've been used to. And so the coaches looked at that and they said, well, what do we put? Okay, we vote, let's go 7th. Dixie State lands at 7th in the RMAC preseason poll. But they're showing quickly that they're bouncing back from where they were last year, and they've got weapons all over the floor. And this is a team that is going to compete for a conference title. The only team really, you'd say ahead maybe by sheer percentage points right now, but you have obviously 1,000 winning percentage right now. Either way, Colorado School of Mines is 5-0 in conference. They've got 1 game in hand in the conference over Dixie State. Trailblazers are 4-0. From there, Colorado Mesa is 4-1. Regis is 4-1. Metro State Denver is 3-1. Highlands 3-2, Black Hill State 2-2, Westminster 2-2. That's all the teams who is 500 or better in RMAC play right now. And I don't expect to see Dixie State to drop out of that top 3 or 4 at all during the season. They have established themselves as a very, very good volleyball team, and we will see them continue to prove that. So Fort Lewis College in on Friday night, Adams State University in on Saturday. I should say Friday night and then Saturday afternoon. We're a little familiar with Adams State. We saw them here at the non-conference tournament that the Trailblazers hosted. They were at that game. We saw some of their games go 5 sets, some long matches. We'll see what they bring to the Student Activities Center on Saturday. Before we run out of time here, I want to talk about men's soccer as well. They get to come home after a couple of tough trips, and what better place, Jason, than have the opportunity to get back on track than at home?
Yeah, they need to, Carrick. They need to really begin to turn things around with a 4-game homestand beginning this weekend. They bring in a couple of teams, Carrick, 2 winnable games to start the homestand, Colorado Springs and then Regis. 2 teams that are at 500 or below at this point in the season. But then they've got to turn things around quickly, because then they bring in Fort Lewis and Colorado Mesa, 2 teams that have not suffered a loss yet this season. A couple ties in there for those 2 teams. But if the men's soccer team wants to turn things around, they have an opportunity to do that with this 4-game homestand, bringing in a couple of teams that have a little bit lower record as far as wins and losses. I hope that they can turn things around. Don't forget, Carrick, they're only averaging right now 1 goal per match. That is something that needs to improve drastically. You want to obviously get that up to 2 or 3 or 4 goals per match. If they can improve on that and limit the goals on the defensive end of things, I like their chances to turn things around. They have an opportunity to do that with the 4-game homestand.
It's certainly not for the lack of trying. Like we mentioned earlier in the game, the shots are there. Shots on goal are there. They're just not finding the back of the net. And sometimes that happens. Like a basketball player, when the coach tells you, hey, you've got to just keep shooting. Shoot the ball, it will happen. One thing that I'd like to see, kind of a trademark that this team has had the last couple of seasons, has been quick starts. Score early, build a lead, and then you're able to not necessarily sit back, because that sounds like then you're not trying anymore, but then you're able to go into more of a defensive-minded game and be able to do what you need to do to win that game. Most importantly, got to have fun. And these guys, not that these guys aren't, but sometimes when you go through that, stretch where you feel like maybe we're not winning quite as much as we have the last few years, and Coach Broadhead, last week we had him on the show, mentioned that, there's that need to remind the guys, just because we've lost the game, it's not a big deal. You've got that RMAC tournament. You don't want to get too much that way, but you've got that RMAC tournament at the end of the season that if you're in a position to where you didn't finish in the top of the standings, you can play your way in to the postseason. So men's soccer, like Drayson said, will host Colorado Springs on Friday, Regis on Sunday, both of those games here at home. Our time is gone. Another edition of Trailblazer Weekly in the books. Remember, you can watch the show anytime on demand at youtube.com/Dixie State Athletics. For Drayson Ball, I'm Carrick Segmiller. Thanks for making us part of your day. We'll see you next week. Go Trailblazers.